Welcome to Season 3 of the Predator Podcast. On this podcast, we'll talk about all things predator hunting. If you're a predator hunter or wanting to become one, you're in the right place. Here's your host, Drew Schlimm.
What's up, guys? I'm back for an off-season episode, and I've got Mason Sims on today from Make Ready Reloading. If you guys have seen my YouTube, my Instagram, you guys have seen that I've been doing a little testing of some ammo that Mason sent me, and I couldn't say enough good things about it. So I had to get Mason on today to talk to him a little bit about it. I want you guys to hear more about this awesome technology and these rounds that he's come up with. So I think these rounds are going to be the death of a lot of coyotes. So Mason, thanks for joining me tonight.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having me on. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, I'm jacked that Mason and I made this work, and we were able to put our busy lives and families and stuff aside for a couple hours to sit down and talk. So I really appreciate it. And Mason, give us a little bit of a rundown of your background as a hunter and how it kind of turned into your business.
Oh man, so I got started into hunting when I was really, really young. My family has had a farm for my whole life, a sod farm, and I've worked there the majority of my life. And so early on, my dad, my grandfathers, all of them were taking me deer hunting and all of that kind of stuff, teaching me the ropes. My great grandfather was actually probably the one who influenced me the most in regards to hunting. He was big into fishing, but hunting was still a very large part of his life. And so I started deer hunting, and I was kind of, I didn't want to sit still long enough to actually be a good deer hunter and or have the patience for it. And so I got into coyote hunting really early on. And I actually remember I got into coyote hunting off of, I think the first video I saw was a Randy Anderson video, I believe.
Yep.
And it was, one of his Calling All Coyotes episodes.
Yep.
And I went out and got like the Primos, hand call and all that kind of stuff. I even got some weird howler. And
Yep.
I was actually able to call in a few coyotes with those. And, I had like the Mojo, like decoy and all that kind of stuff. I don't even know if those are still around. I have no idea.
Yep. They
But
are, I think.
yes, so they're cool. They're still around. I have mine in my callback still.
Yep.
I haven't used it in forever, but it's just nice to have.
Yep.
And got started and called in my first coyote actually out here on the farm. I'll never forget when I saw my first one. I just gotten a 223 bolt gun. Kind of the first gun that most people have in their arsenal. And went out, called in a coyote with that Primos hand call, sure as the world. And it was probably at about like, in my young mind, I thought it was like 300 or 350 yards because I
Yep.
was so jacked. Like I was so freaking out. I was sitting there with like a bog bipod, my gun in the bipod.
Yep.
Had a decent setup. Actually played the wind right, even though I had no idea about wind at that point. And called in two coyotes, a pair, actually, about June. June was the time of year I called them in. And then missed the darn thing. Shot probably like 3 foot over its back because of how far away I thought it was because I was freaking out so much.
Yep.
And I was hooked. After that, the rest is history. And then I kind of got away from it for a while because I mentioned to you kind of off camera, my area is starting to get more and more suburban, which stinks a little bit. But nonetheless, it's made me have to think it differently and be more strategic with how I hunt around here.
Yeah.
So that kind of took me away from it for a little while. And then I started coming back when thermal started getting big. Because here at night, it's a different world. You can call them in during the day and have some success. If I was to put it in percentages, if you were to hunt, 100% of the year that you were able, in my area, I'm going to guess you would kill probably 75, if not 80% of your coyotes at night, and you
Yep.
may kill 20 to 15% during the day. But, for me, I'm working most of the day, and my kids and wife are asleep at night. So I go hunting at night. And first thermal it was a game changer because I hunted with NVGs at first and IR lasers and that is a terrible way to hunt. I do not recommend it. Scared off a lot of coyotes, missed a lot of coyotes doing that, and made some really educated coyotes, a couple that are still around, and paid the price for that.
Yep.
So, that kind of got me into it. That got me started. I started reloading several years ago, and it just kind of grew. I was running like a little. I got into guns at that point, so I was running a little short 14.5 AR with my first suppressor. Um, and I wanted to try to get something better than the factory velocities I was getting. So, of course, reloading is the natural next step to that. And so I started playing around with some things. I started getting some better velocities in that short gun. And from there, some of my friends started asking me if I would make things for them. And
Yeah.
after they started asking me if I'd make things for them, well, it just kept on. Because legally, you're allowed to make stuff for yourself, but technically you're not supposed to, make it
Right.
for other people. And so I was like, well, hold on, give me a little while and I'll see if I can make something out of this. And so then Make Ready Reloading was born. And then after I started the business, I started selling, just a little bit to my friends in the beginning. And the business is very young. Like I put in a lot of time on the front end trying to get everything together.
Yeah.
And just to be able to get your paperwork together and all that kind of stuff is kind of extensive, but that's neither here nor there. So sold a little bit to them in the beginning, and from there, just things started taking a different turn, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. It's actually funny that you say the Randy Anderson and that whole story, because that's pretty much how I started too, is from that Randy
Yeah.
Anderson
Yep.
calling all coyotes. I had the DVD and the howler and all that stuff
Oh
too.
yeah.
So it's funny that you kind of started the same way I did, and yeah, I still remember calling coyotes in with the hand calls. And it's funny looking back and seeing how much it's changed and thinking back, 15, 20 years ago. I remember them coyotes running right up into our lap that we would kill for nowadays.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's funny that just the way it's evolved, and how, I mean, thermal's changed a lot, but like I'm in the same boat as you. Same, you know, I wouldn't say that we're super suburban, but we have a lot of population. Like there's just not a lot of, blank space for animals to just roam like there is, when I go to Kansas and when I go to Texas and, all these places
Mhm.
in the West where there's, you might go 10, 15 miles without seeing a house. It's just like
Yeah.
there's 10 landowners around one block here. So it's very similar, I would say, as you mentioned the percentages of day versus night. I think it's very similar for us here. So yeah,
Absolutely. It's not like it just is what it is. You
yep,
hunt at night here, you're more successful. I mean, I have crazy stories. I've called in. I have one spot that is very cool. I actually have a reel up on YouTube of this coyote. This was this past winter. It was the coolest call in I've ever had, and I've had some insane ones in these
yeah,
areas because they're so tight.
right,
I had one time. I wish that this was before I had a thermal that would record really well. I had a clip on,
yep,
and it just wasn't very good. I had a coyote come within about 5 feet of me. I mean, it was the most insane thing ever. It was two or
huh,
three of them. They were sprinting into the call like so fast that I couldn't shut it off quick enough.
yep,
And I was sitting up against this dude's house and facing like the rest of his property, the woods, because that was the only shooting line I had where he'd be safe.
yeah,
And sure enough, they broke the tree line, and the tree line was like 80 yards away, and they didn't stop at all. And that first coyote, I kid you not, I probably could have touched it with my gun barrel. I mean, it was close and missed it, obviously, because it
yep,
looked like, this big in that clip on screen running
yep,
at me, and I couldn't barely pick out a shoulder or anything. And then, you know, the other one that I'm referred to, it's up the road just a little bit. I called that one across the lady's yard in the middle, like it was about 2 a.m. It was really late. and we were about to pack up. I was with a friend. He was new to the coyote hunt at the time. Now he's ate up with it
Yep.
because of that call in. And he came walking down this lady's driveway, and this guy was old, didn't have a tooth in his head. He knew
Huh.
exactly what he was doing. He'd probably seen me a million times out at this place, and I just changed my setup. That's something that I think a lot of people neglect. Like I change my setups pretty often based off the
Yeah.
wind, and or if I think I can block a coyote with houses or something in my area, and make them come in where I want them to.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like that with this. I had flipped my NVGs down and was looking, and I was like, no way. Here he come down this woman's driveway right under her floodlight, straight to us. And now we kind of the same thing. We had very narrow shooting lanes, and we just got lucky. He
Yep.
walked right into one of our shooting lanes. But by the time he walked to us, he was like 50 yards away. He was close, and just got lucky and got to pull the trigger on him. And that's the coolest call in I've ever had because it literally walked straight down somebody's driveway, and it had to have crossed probably 10 houses to get to us
Huh.
from the other patch of woods he was in.
That's crazy. That'd be cool to see though.
Yeah, I wish I had like a full video. It would be so awesome. But since I saw it under NVGs and not thermal, like I couldn't record him walking down that driveway, and so unfortunately, but it was
Yeah.
a very cool call in for
Yeah,
sure.
that reminds me of I got a video I think that I took last winter that we were on a stand. This coyote was coming from across the road. It's coming like across the road like at the T of like landowner's driveway and then the road. And as this coyote's like 10 feet from the road, the mail comes. Like and the landowner's mailbox is right there by the road, obviously. And the mail vehicle comes in, puts the mail in the mailbox, drives off. That coyote just stopped and watched it drive away and then just kept on coming in. It was
Oh, that is cool.
crazy. I gotta look and see if I have that somewhere because I had it in my scanner. I was recording it through my scanner and I gotta see if I have that somewhere. But
That would be an awesome video as well.
yeah,
That'd be really cool to see. Sometimes they just don't care. As smart as they are, when they're determined, it all goes away, and they're
yeah,
coming almost no matter what.
yeah, for sure. And sometimes actually that the way, when stuff like that happens, it's with the way we least expect it. So it makes you
Oh
wonder.
yeah,
It's like, dang, maybe I should be looking back at that house more often.
yeah, yeah, exactly. That's the same thing with me. I never would have thought that one would have come from where it did. I just
Right.
got lucky and glanced over that way.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's fun. And then of course you get to see your ammo work on critters, and that's even better yet.
Yeah, that one I was actually talking about. It was actually with a bolt gun load for 6 ARC. And I have sold that to some customers by request only, usually, just because if you put that load in a gas gun, you're going to have problems. It's designed specifically for a bolt gun because 6 ARC bolt guns and 22 ARC bolt guns can handle higher pressures than the gas guns can,
Yep.
just because that bolt face is, hollowed out, so to speak, and it
Right.
will not take the same amount of pressure that a normal 5.56 bolt face will.
Yeah.
And so that one came to 50 yards and found out what a 6 ARC bolt gun load can do. But that one's moving pretty good. I believe I've chronoed it at right at 3,400 with 58 VMAX. So it's moving pretty good. And that's with
Yeah.
no pressure signs. Like, that's nothing crazy where you're like barely able to lift your bolt and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Tim Stable load, it's a really good one. It's but like I said, it's typically I only do that one by request, just
Yeah.
because I don't want somebody to slip it into their gas gun and hurt themselves.
Yeah. No, for sure. That makes sense. Yeah, that's a hot 6 arc load too. I mean, that's cooking.
Oh yeah, it's moving, but man, it it does really good, really really good.
Yeah, I believe that. So I've shot the 53, the 60, and now I shot the 69 Sierra Blitz King today. Um, all of which I could not believe. I'm not gonna lie, when Mason was messaging me and he was telling me what velocities I was gonna get with this 53 grain VMAX, I was like, I'm sure you were probably like, oh, this guy don't believe me, but I was like, well, if your velocity numbers are right, it's gonna be pretty impressive. But I was thinking to myself, like, there's no way. like I've shot lots of 223 in my day and 22 Nosler and whatever. And so I was like, well, I'll shoot them, whatever. We'll find out. And I'll be danged if I didn't shoot that. I had just had the numbers up here. If I didn't shoot those 53 grain VMAX out of an 18-inch standard 223 AR-15, and let's see, what did they were 3384 average is what I had out of the 53 grain VMAX. And like I was telling you before, and then I shot a 55 grain Varmint Express from Hornady that I had, shot lots of coyotes with. And that one I had at 2988. So quite a bit difference. Even more impressive was that 60 that I shot at 3150 versus that 55 at 2980. It's pretty impressive. And then when I shot the 69 grain today, and what did I tell you? That one was 3004.
Yep.
Standard deviation was 7.6 on an 8-shot group, which is absolutely unreal. I would, if I could have my reloads and my bolt guns be 7, I would be ecstatic.
Yeah, that actually, believe it or not, is not even a so all the NAS3 loads that I release, the only way that I'm able to do the volume that I am is because I have a really good auto press. And that auto press has changed things for me. It's changed how much I can load, it's changed how quickly I can load. It's also changed the precision, believe it or not, that I'm able to achieve out of some of those things in different ways. Now, typically, everybody thinks of auto presses and they're like, or at least, the auto presses that you would typically think of as a reloader. So,
Yeah.
like your auto drive Dillons and all that kind of stuff. And I've seen mixed things about those Dillon auto drives. I have a Mark. I don't mind sharing this. I have a Mark 7 Titan, and it is incredible. It's the technology is. I'm sure there's other things out there that the large manufacturers like Hornady or any of the other large manufacturers have that can achieve the same things that my press is achieving. I have zero doubt because they've been doing it for years. There's no way
Yeah.
they don't have that stuff. But for a typical, a startup company like me, that technology's usually been a little bit out of reach. But now it's actually within your reach if you save your money and invest correctly. It's very achievable. So anyway, with those NAS3 loads, the case technology is what allows those velocities to actually be achieved. Because I mentioned off camera with you, these cases don't fit the traditional mold of how they build pressure.
Yeah.
If you don't believe me, call Shell Shock Technologies, and their engineers will tell you the same thing because that's what I did before I even started offering these things when I was in testing at the very beginning before I released any NAS3 loadings. I called them and I was like, hey guys, can you give me some more information on this? Because traditional loadings, you guys, for some of them, not all of them, some of them will actually do what they say they'll do. Like you could put a traditional loading in, like on a 77 grain hollow point boat tail, for example, and it will actually be 100, 150 FPS, sometimes 200 FPS faster than traditional brass casings, which is what they advertise.
Yep.
They're doing that though with those heavier bullets
Yep.
because their applications are very much so focused on our military and the future. But for coyote hunters, it's light projectiles, and some of those traditional loadings, they don't build pressure the same way at all because it's a much, much lighter bullet. And the cases have increased case fill. They're lighter. The case wall is way thinner than brass, so it has a tighter chamber fit, all that stuff. And so I was asking them, hey, is this normal? Like, are y'all seeing this? Because I've seen your advertised velocities. They have a 50. Shell Shock has a 55 grain loading, and I think Badlands is about to release a 55 grain VMAX loading, and they're up at like almost 3,500 FPS. And
Huh.
so that's probably like a blend powder that you can custom make. More than likely, that does happen in the industry. I've learned that, but that's that's just what those big manufacturers can do. They can afford
Right.
to do it. And so they
Right.
can achieve those velocities. And they're like, yeah, this is normal. Like we've rated them up to the top pressure rating, and this is more than any gas gun or bolt gun will ever handle in 223 is like 105,000 psi for these cases to actually like crack or break. That is beyond crazy. That's
Yeah.
more than a bolt gun will handle for sure.
Right.
It's more than you would want to handle,
Yeah.
you know. And so I started working on the 53 grain stuff right after I started doing some match grade stuff before release. I wanted to have three loads to start, and it was going to be 77 grain Sierra Match King, 75 grain Bowtail Hollow Point, Hornady Bowtail Hollow Point, and then 53 VMAX. Those were the three that I thought that I was going to release to start and just stay there. But when I got to the 53s, because like I said, I'm a coyote hunter at heart,
Yep.
and I did a little bit of velocity testing with that initial batch of cases, and I was like, man, this is going to be crazy.
Yeah.
And so I just started working on it, and it went from there into everything you see today. Crazy velocities that are actually safe.
Yeah.
That's the key. Safe in a gas gun, safe in a bolt gun. I've had customers who are shooting them in 1 and 9, even I think some 1 and 12 twists too, which is kind of crazy. The ammo wasn't really designed for those twist rates, but it still
Yeah.
works. And they're shooting very well. So I'm very happy with that for sure. And
Yeah.
the case technology is so innovative. I think a lot of our cases in the future are going to be in these, and it's very very cool because most of the gun manufacturers, if for anybody that hasn't seen it, they're changing all of their rifle systems around these cases. And when I saw that early on in this business, I was like, okay, I need to actually release some of these because this is where the future is going to be for
Yeah.
sure.
No, I completely agree with you. Um, this was my first experience with the NAS3 case. Um, if you guys aren't familiar with it, here I have one in my hand. This is an NAS3 case, and this is a standard Hornady 55 grain. So you can see the segmented kind of back end towards the primer. You can see them side by side. Um, but this is from my understanding, this is a bread and butter. Obviously, I'm a reloader. So when Mason told me about these velocities that he's getting, I'm like, whoa, like, what do you mean they're going to be shooting at 3,400 feet a second? But then I shot him. And then I started looking into this and talking more with Mason. And this case technology I would agree with Mason, this is the future. And if I was telling some of my friends that I know shoot 223, I'm like, hey, like you might want to get these rounds if you're tired of tracking coyotes. Like these are going to be the difference maker, in my opinion. Like these, that I would not shoot a 22 Nosler if I had these rounds
Yeah.
7 years ago.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that was, like I said, I'm a coyote hunter, and so when that started happening, I quit shooting 223. I'll just be blunt. I
Yeah,
quit
me too.
shooting it because, and I know you did too. A lot of people have quit shooting 223 because, and now some people, they're probably going to get in the comments and just be like, "Oh, I've never had a runner," all this stuff, and I shoot them square in the chest every time.
Yep.
Okay, good for you. That's
Yeah.
awesome. But I've shot coyotes square in the chest, and they took it like a champ, and I never find them
Yep.
ever. And so, and track them until I literally can't track them anymore because they're on somebody else's property, and they're probably still going.
Right.
So when I started figuring this stuff out, it made me really want to shoot 223 again. It actually started changing my mind back to where it's like, oh, this is actually a good thing to have now. Because in reality, for the cost, because it's very comparable to other loadings that are out there, mine or anybody else's that's doing this case technology, the performance that you get in these things compared to traditional brass as a hunter, just specifically as a hunter, is phenomenal. You get much higher velocities out of a gas gun.
Yep.
You haven't been able to do that. Like you've only been able to achieve that in a bolt gun where you can run those pressures way up past what a AR-15 bolt face will handle. And so this 53 VMAX is, I've got one in my hand right here too. It's it's what kind of got me back started, shooting 223 again. And
Yeah.
it's been incredible for sure.
Yeah, I've actually also never had one misfire like malfunction yet.
Yes,
That
that's
was
that's
one
the other
thing.
incredible thing. It's awesome.
Yeah, that
Sorry,
was
I didn't
one
mean to
thing
interrupt you.
that's one thing that I thought like, okay, I'm like, okay, now there's got to be a problem here. Like this has got to malfunction. This has got to something. There's no way that there's gonna get this good velocity and it's gonna shoot good and it's gonna function.
Yes, absolutely. The
Sure enough, it
only times I've had a case failure with these are because my gun's too dirty.
yeah,
Typically, it's when I've gone on longer hunts and I don't have my normal cleaning materials where I can actually deep clean my rifle, and so the only reason it fouls up or stops is because my gun's too dirty.
right.
And I've literally never had one fail to feed or fail to eject, which is the hallmark of brass casings in 223. Like and especially in the cold months, especially in the cold months, you're
Yeah,
going to have problems. Well, with these, I've shot them in really cold temps. I was very lucky to be able to develop these when I still had some cold temps,
yeah,
and I still have never. I've fired thousands and thousands of these things in development and testing and all of that kind of stuff, and personally for hunting and all of that kind of stuff. And I've never had one fail to feed, fail to eject, nothing like that. It's incredible. It really is.
yeah,
Shell Shock has knocked it out of the park with these cases for sure.
yeah. No, I agree. I have, yeah, like I said, no malfunctions, no anything. I've been nothing but super, super impressed. And like I told you, I'm like shooting these things makes me want to get my 223 out and go hunting again.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Oh yeah. Like I was talking to you off camera too about the 69s because you
Yep,
mentioned you shot them today.
yep.
They're they are probably the best all-purpose round that I've developed for this business so far. I was telling you, I would pick these things up and I would go shoot a match. I would go shoot hogs or I would go shoot coyotes with those things. I've I haven't personally because I've been so busy doing this and other things that I haven't been able to kill a coyote with it yet. But it's killed some coyotes and bobcats. It's killed hogs. I mean the way that this thing hits hogs for anybody that listens that's a hog hunter, it's crazy. I had guys shooting 200 plus pound boars on the run once in the shoulder and they were dying. Like that doesn't happen with normal 223 VMAX stuff. That
No,
is out of the question. You typically for hogs that big, I've learned since I've been to Texas once now, they're going to soak up a lot of those VMAX rounds really well because they're so thick and they've got so much mass, especially those big boars. And typically you got to run something like a hollow point boat tail, but with those 69s, you've got a speed advantage because the other factory loadings in brass they just can't go that fast without issues.
right.
And it's a way bigger bullet than is typically loaded for a VMAX round in 223 specifically. And so it crushes them. It's
Yeah.
crazy the things I've seen. I had a guy send me a picture. I wish I could post this, but Instagram would whack me if I posted it. But he actually shot a coyote or not a coyote, a hog head on from the place where he was staying, and it bulged its eyes. He said, "I've shot a lot of hogs, and I've never had one of these things bulge a hog's eyes like that." So it's
Uh,
very cool. The technology is awesome, and I'm just very very happy that I get to be a part of it for sure.
yeah. No, it is awesome. And yeah, I shot that 69 today at like I mentioned earlier, 3004 was my average velocity with like I think it was 316 was my top end and the standard deviation was 7.6 and that's just unbelievable in my opinion for a factory round. I don't know what you would call it if it's a
Yeah, it's technically so. I'll explain that a little. So my business is called Make Ready Reloading.
right.
Part of the backstory behind that is I'd mentioned I had a very different business model in mind at the beginning of this when I first started this thing. My idea was going to be that I would do almost exclusively custom ammunition. It's built for people's firearms, so that's where the reloading loading side comes in. because you get factory new brass, you've got to fire form it to the chamber, and then you can do all the other things to make that brass or that load shoot very well in that specific rifle. Because that's what I've been doing for my personal guns for several years now, is fire forming to the chamber, creating a load that works amazing in that gun. It may not work great in anything else, but it works really good in that one. And
Yep.
so I was planning on doing custom ammo and maybe some reloads and stuff like that here and there. But then I had some really close friends who are in the industry come back from SHOT Show and start talking about these cases. And they're like, hey man, have you heard about these NAS3 cases? Like, they're blowing up. It's a big thing. Like, gun manufacturers are changing their rifles around these cases. And I was like, I was such a doubter. Like, I'll totally admit it. I was like, oh no, no, those things won't catch on. Because when you look at them, it's very reminiscent of like your, I don't know if the camera will pick this up. Okay, there we go. That's okay. So you can see the actual base and then the cylinder of this case. Technically, that's old case technology. I mean, technically, but Shell Shock has concocted a way to make these things much stronger than old, like belted 300 Win Mag, for example, or any of your other classic belted cartridges. And so these things, they don't come apart. Like, you don't lose that belt. You're able to achieve higher pressure because, I mean, the base of this is steel, like the actual base is true steel, and then the cylinder body is a nickel steel alloy, and that's what allows you to be able to achieve the velocities. But the base, or at least there's some other science to it. I don't have to go too far into that, but our military wanted something that they could pick up at the ranges with a magnet, and you can do that with these. And so
Huh.
then they were like, okay, well, it wasn't exactly like that based off of what the engineers at Shell Shock have told me. They were looking for something where the, you know, case head would not expand the same way that brass does. Because you've got flow and then you've got expansion with brass, right? That's just how it works. And that's where you get some of the negative side effects when you're running too high pressures, where you've got like, a rupture, right? You got a rupture in the actual main cylinder of the case, or you've got a rupture in the case head, which is really bad. If you
Yeah.
have a rupture in the case head, and I've seen some pictures where people have loaded some of these things like brass cases so hard that, or so heavy that they crack this case head, it like split down the middle. I mean, that's super high pressure. Like, that is crazy. But
Yeah.
with these, it doesn't happen. I mean, you'll blow your gun up before you blow these cases up. You really would hurt your gun before you ever hurt the case. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So I had a very different business model in mind. I got started with these cases, started developing stuff, and the results were incredible. The 53 VMAX was kind of a happy accident. I just wanted to see if it would work.
Yeah.
That's literally all I wanted to do. And I thought it wasn't going to at first, because the engineers told me, kind of like I mentioned before, that the 77 grain hollow point boat tail loads, you can put a standard loading in there, it'll go 100 to 200 FPS faster, all that stuff. Well, that was true for those, like when I did all the testing with various powders and all the combinations and stuff. That was true with those heavy projectiles. With these light projectiles, it did not work that way at all, not even close. I lost velocity in these cases with light projectiles versus brass. So, I had to call the engineers and confirm. I was like, hey, these things build pressure differently, right? Because you've got increased case capacity, you've got a different powder fill, you're not getting the velocities that you should. And they were like, yes, they do. And I was like, okay, awesome. That's all I need to know. And so from there, I just started. I mentioned I had to do the math to figure out where my ceiling was, or sometimes I would actually see where I could go before I started seeing pressure signs. But that's tricky with these cases, because the pressure signs for these cases, like I mentioned, they're rated for like 105,000 psi. So you really got to be careful, because you could get really high in your pressure and never be able to know it. Like, you just wouldn't know it because these cases are
Right.
so tough. And so
Right.
that's where actually going back and doing some of the simple math to figure out what your pressures are helps a lot, a whole lot. And so stumbled on the 53s, and the 53s have done pretty good for sure. And then the rest of them just got developed over time.
Yeah, no, I would agree. Anybody that's shooting, even like I said, even like I shot lots of coyotes with that 55 grain Hornady Varmint Express, and those 53s are 400 feet a second faster. I
Oh
mean,
yes, and it's great. Like it's the velocity we've all wanted,
yeah,
like out of an AR platform. That's what I've wanted for a long
exactly.
time.
Yep.
And that's what made me change my business model. When I stumbled across all these loadings, I was like, man, I'm gonna have to do this. I can see it. Like the thing that really like took me over the edge with these and convinced me was when Seekins discontinued all of their rifle lines.
Yeah.
They discontinued every single one of their rifle lines and said, "Hey, we're releasing all these rifles that can handle up to, I think it's like 90 or 100,000 psi." I was like, "Okay, it's happening. Like it's happening right before my eyes. There's no way I can't jump on this." And so that's when I started like figuring out what I would need to do to be able to make these in mass quantities. Because up until that point, I was doing single stage stuff almost exclusively,
Yeah.
and to be able to produce volume for people and to truly run an ammo business, you've got to be able to put a lot out there.
Yep.
So that's when I started looking at presses, and thankfully I was able to get hooked up with Mark Seven and those guys over there, and it's been great. That press is very very cool.
How
But
many how many rounds can you do in an hour, or is there like
so
anything?
I have different options. So it's really cool what you can do with it. You can run technically. Let me just say this technically. You can run up to 4,500 rounds an hour. However, I don't recommend doing that
Right.
because when you run up that high, you have a lot more room for error,
Yep.
especially when something mechanical is going that fast. Now, it's got a lot of sensors, all kinds of fail safes in place to stop the press when something goes wrong, but nonetheless, you're still going to have some errors at that speed. You're going to have a loaded case that tips just a little too far out to the outside and gets smashed. I mean, because the thing when it's running 4,500 rounds an hour, it is moving like it's going very fast. Now for pistol caliber stuff, it'd be just fine because you don't really have that case topple.
Right.
So you could run a lot of pistol rounds like that. But with the rifle stuff, typically I keep it at about 1,500 to 2,000 an hour, and that does really well for me. It keeps everything nice and consistent. It keeps the powder charges consistent. It keeps the primer seating depth consistent. Even the bullet seating depth consistent. All of that stuff.
Right.
And so as long as it's level, because that's what I want out of my business. I want extreme precision if possible.
Yeah.
And not every rifle is going to shoot these things like phenomenally well. I know that that's just not going to happen. But I wanted to get as good as possible. That way, the rifles that weren't going to shoot them as good would still be acceptable.
Right.
So, with the loads I've released currently, you have different options to choose from. Just like your gun didn't like the 53s as much, mine loves them.
Yep.
And so you went to the 60s and they shot
Mine
great.
love the 60. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like you went to the 60s and it shot great. And that's why I wanted to put several different VMAX options out there. That way people had a choice, like they had something to pick from. And so that's what made me change the business model. That's what got me to this point.
Yeah.
And it's gone pretty good so far. I'm happy with the loadings that have come out for sure.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're not going to get those small standard deviation numbers without being precise and accurate. And, that's the name of the game when you're talking standard deviation. So, I mean, obviously, I think what you're doing is working. So, obviously I'm glad that there's people like you out there that are much smarter than me to figure stuff like this out so I can shoot
That's hilarious. No,
it.
I'm just a regular guy. I've had to learn all this stuff, just like anybody else would who's starting a business. Like I do not call myself the smartest person in the world. You can ask my wife that. But I'm just very happy that I've been able to learn, because the learning curve on this, when you're talking about mass quantities of precision ammunition, it's steep.
Yeah,
It's very steep.
for sure. And
Uh,
I'd imagine you messed up a lot too.
oh yes. Oh gosh, man. Like when I first got that press, it it came in on the semi and I was getting it off with some equipment over at the farm with a skid loader, and I was like, "Wow, this is going to be interesting." That was my first thought, was this is going to be interesting because it had all kinds of things that I had never dealt with before. It
Yep.
had a sensor on so many stations. It had all kinds of different things working, together to actuate different parts of the press. And then it had, bullet feed, case feed, and all of the stuff that you had to learn. And then it had the display screen and like all the software. It's a steep learning curve, but it's worth it because I want, like, this is my dream job basically, and this
Yep.
is also, I don't mind disclosing this either, but this is what I want to be my full-time job in the future, because right
Yep.
now it's just not a reality where
Yep.
I can do this full time. I want it to be that way, but it hopefully it'll get there one day. And so this is what I do when I work this job on overtime.
Yep.
So, but I wouldn't have it any other way. There's no way I'd want to be doing anything different, for sure.
Yeah. No, I don't blame you. I think it's awesome, and it's fun. It comes from the right place. It's not like you're out here trying to, just strike gold with some, crazy technology. You're just coming from a hunter, and you just want to share that with other hunters, and that's what's awesome about it to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I wanted to put out a quality product to people that would help them achieve their goals. That's what I wanted to do. Like some
Yep.
guys are obviously they're going to kill way more coyotes than I ever
Yep.
will.
Yep.
That's in one year they're going to kill more coyotes than I probably ever have.
Yep. Me
And
too.
so, yeah, yeah, like I've heard about some guys talk about how many they kill, and I'm like, man, that must be nice.
Yeah, I
But
agree.
yeah, like the guys that I just wanted to put that stuff out there to those guys who are killers, and some guys that are, government trappers and stuff like that. They do this for a living.
Yeah,
And so I thought about those guys too, because they need tools that are going to work every time
for
and do
sure.
what they need it to do every time.
Yeah,
Especially if they could tote around, a very light, like carbon fiber barrel, short AR-15 that can get this kind of velocity and still carry it out to a decent distance. I'm not going to act like a 223 bullet is the best, has the best PC in the world. It just doesn't.
yeah,
But nonetheless, it will achieve your goals, most people's goals, within probably 3 to 500 yards. That's where most shots are. That and in.
yep,
Typically, most guys' shots are taken probably no farther than 250, but you never know. Some guys out west are shooting way farther than that.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, there's some people that do, but yeah, I would agree with that. Um, One thing that we talked about briefly too was you mentioned sample sizes and like
Yes.
just
Yep.
can you expand on that a little bit and tell us a little bit about, your sample sizes for testing and for, what you think people should be looking at as far as, shooting groups and, finding consistencies?
Yeah. So, I, for the record, before I get started on this, I'm just like everybody else. I came from the same place. I started with really small sample sizes and group sizes,
Yep.
and then when I started the business, I started learning more, and I started to learn that it's just simple science stuff. That's really all it is.
Yep.
The larger of a sample size you get, the better data you're going to have to go off of and make decisions off of and change things off of. And so I figured out, actually, I won't lie where I got it from. I was listening to the guys over on the Hornady podcast, and their chief ballistician came on and was talking about how essentially, and this was what blew my mind. Essentially, the only real way that you can tell if something's going to do good or group good or be consistent over time is if you shoot no less than 40 round groups. And when I heard that, I was like, oh man, that, that's a lot of ammo to
Right.
test. Like, that's a lot. And so I was like, there's no way. Like, literally, kind of the same thing like with the NS3 cases. I was like, there's no way this is right. There's no way.
Yeah.
And so then I started trying it in development before I released these things to see if it was going to be true. And man, it was true. I found where a lot of loads broke down that were phenomenal for the first 5 to 10 shots, like truly phenomenal, like one whole groups. But then when you went past that and your barrel started to heat up, they just went they went to crap. There's no other way to say it. They turned into, they went from quarter size groups to like 4 to 5 MOA groups, like that big of a difference. Like it was crazy. And then I was starting to have some that would group in 2 places, and that's not a
Yep.
joke. That's a thing too. If people haven't experienced that, you shoot larger sample sizes, and you'll find that that will happen to you. I had this is a good example. I had a 6 arc load that I really wanted to release because it was going to be the velocity that everybody wanted and the precision that everybody wanted. And I was like, this is perfect. Like this is a good self defense, rep load. This is going to be a good long range load, all that stuff. Well, then I started shooting 40 round groups, and when I did that, I had to go back and reinvent the whole load because that load I would shoot it. So the way I do it, let me break this down real quick before I go any farther. So essentially, it depends on the rifle too. Like some of the hot rods, like 6 Creed, 22 Creed, all of those, you're just flat out, you're not going to be able to do 40 round groups. They're going way too fast. The barrel's going to get way too hot.
Yep.
That's just the reality. And before anybody jumps on me about that, I understand that. That's very true. But with these and for mass manufacturing, you have to do that. Like you have to figure out what it's going to do under heat, under pressure, all of that kind of stuff before you actually put it out, because you want people to be safe and you also want people to achieve their goals, like I said. So that 6 arc load started grouping in 2 places. And those 2 places, so if I only shot 5 to 6 shots, here's what would happen. I would have 4 of them very tight. And then I'd have 2 that were just like up in here where my index finger is. And it's not enough to notice at 100 yards, at least at first. But then when I went and started shooting larger sample sizes, it was a very defined, like quarter size group here, quarter size group up here. No joke. And I was like, okay, maybe this is just my rifle. So I went and got some friends' rifles and all that kind of stuff. And same thing in the rifles I shot. And so after that happened, I was like, okay, there's something to this. I've got to model this, like I've got to do this. And so the way that works when I do testing, it'll be a 40 round group total with stuff like this, the NAS3 stuff, especially if it's in an AR-15 platform, because the AR-15s typically you can kind of get away with that a little better.
Yep.
But I started out doing 10 rounds, barrel cool down, 10 rounds, barrel cool down, 10 rounds, barrel cool down, till I was finished. But that ate up so much time that I was like, okay, I want to see if 20 rounds, like splitting this in 2 and then a large cooldown in between, will still work. And so I started doing that. And then once I started doing that, I was getting the same results and was able to like go, okay, this one's not going to work. This one shows a little bit of promise. I can kind of develop that, or this one's phenomenal. I need to move forward with this. And so those larger sample sizes are what actually started sifting everything out and helping me not waste time, because that's a big thing. The largest ammo manufacturers, they have a budget for that, and that's great. Like they can eat some of that cost and go down all those rabbit holes. But for me, I couldn't do that. And so I had to figure out like, okay, is this going to be a good direction to go in, or is this just a waste of time? And
Yep.
I've had a lot that were a waste of time, a lot. One of them I was teasing actually. It was 69 grain Sierra Match King Hollow Point boat tail that was going 3010 to 3050 FPS. It was looking like it was going to be a killer load, but when you took it out to distance, it was awful. And when I say awful, I mean horrible. Like it up at about 100 yards out to like 300, 350. It was good. Like it would print 40 round groups, like I said, about the size like half MOA, 3/4 MOA or less. And 3/4 MOA or less 40 round groups are awesome. Like that's cool. But when you took it out past 300-ish yards, it really started to open up. big time. And so when that started happening, I was like, okay, I got to can this. But I put all the time and effort in. And I've actually got half a 5-gallon bucket of that ammo sitting out there that was a waste of time. But nonetheless, that's what happens sometimes. So that's why I went to larger sample sizes and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's all super interesting, and especially for a guy that's a reloader. I've always, it's funny because I grew up. My grandpa taught me how to reload, and it was always a 3-shot group, always a 3-shot group. And I've always like now I always try to do like at least 5, if not 10. Just or like even shooting 10 and then letting your barrel cool and shoot 5 more, like just to see, even if it's a 15 rounds, but it's, you know, and I noticed that when I was shooting the other day, that thing like you're talking about, like one here, one here. Like
Yep.
I said that to my buddy. I'm like, I just shot 2 that were touching right there, and I just shot 2 more that were touching, but they're low right. Like I don't. That was weird. But then like it could be something like you're talking about that you've seen before with those bigger sample sizes.
Yes, and some of it, so we can talk about all kinds of stuff with that, but some of it will be related to one of two things. Well, three things. Really, the only three things that are going on with your ammo. Some of it, and a lot of guys don't put as much emphasis on the primer side of things, but ignition timing and the primer and all of that kind of stuff is a big deal. Um, some guys just see the primer, no big deal. That's fine if it works for you, great. But you can tune your primer to where it will really do the work for you. And so with those that would group in 2 places, sometimes it would be a seating depth thing, sometimes it'd be a primer thing, sometimes it'd be like the powder just doesn't like this combo, and so you've got to figure something else out if you want to shoot specifically that powder or specifically that projectile or specifically that primer, whatever. You got to figure out a different combo that's going to work.
Yep.
And that happened with that 6 arc load. I had to can it. Like I literally just had to can that load. And maybe one day, like I'll bring it back up and start testing it again. But for now, it's just not worth it.
Right.
It's just to the point where it doesn't make sense. For lack of a better way to say it, just doesn't make sense to continue it. But all the other ones, I've got some 6.5 Creed stuff out there. I'm actually working on 6 Creed. I was doing that most of the day today, and those things are coming along okay. They're doing good, but those are the small batch like side of this business, because the NAS3 stuff that I have now and will be released in the future is going to be dealing with like the larger batch stuff for sure. But all of the brass loadings and stuff like that, those are where the reloading side of the business kind of comes into play. That falls more um, typically with brass for clarity.
Yeah.
The brass
Yep.
I put out, I just want to clarify this too. The NS3K stuff that I put out, all of it's new. None of it's reloaded. You can't really do that with NAS3 cases.
Yep.
The brass stuff that I put out, none of it's reloaded. It's all new, just like I would want out of ammo that I'm just getting. Because
Right.
I'm an end user too. Like I know what I would want, and I don't want something where you have no idea how many firings the brass has been through, any of that stuff. I don't want that. Nobody else does either. Because
Right.
if you buy a brass loading, if you're a reloader like I am, you're probably going to keep the cases and
Yeah.
you'll use them one day.
Exactly.
And so that's why all that stuff that I put out is new, so that if guys want to use it for something else in the future, they can use it.
Right.
And so that's a very different take on things than where I was at first. But like I said, the reloading side of the business falls under that custom ammo tab that you've seen on my site,
Yep.
where somebody can like send me their rifle and I work up a load specifically for that gun, however many they want. That comes with a little bit more of a fee, just because I'm having to focus specifically on one thing. But it I've done it for some customers and they've been happy with it for sure. I worked up some 6.5 PRC deer loads for a guy for this coming deer season. Actually, couple months ago, and he was like, "Hey, I want this velocity. I want, this brass." Like he wanted Lapua brass. He wanted
Yep.
like the nice stuff. And so I was like, "Okay, no problem." And so I was like, "You've got your rifle." He left it, here. I did all the proper paperwork and stuff, just signed it in, to the FFL for the purpose of gunsmithing, because that's what it falls under.
Yep.
And worked up the load for him, gave it back to him, just said, "Hey, here's your groups. Here's what it's done. Here's what it will do. Here's the speeds, like all of that stuff." Gave him all the information. That's where the reloading side comes into play, because I took all that Lapua brass that he wanted and fireformed it to his chamber and all the normal stuff you do when you reload. And then after that, he had some that were shooting lights out.
Yep.
So that's where the reloading side of the business kind of comes into play. And I wanted to bring a good light to reloading as well. I wanted to change that stigma that people have heard or seen about businesses when they think about reloading. Because before I started this business, I've had local businesses that were reloading businesses that had some interesting business practices. I'll leave names out and all that kind of stuff, but some of the things they were doing were they were wrong. And so I wanted to change that concept. That's why I stuck with reloading and staying, instead of changing to something like munitions or ammo company or whatever.
Yep.
Just because I love the branding, and I think that it's good. It'll be good in the future. Just because as more people find out about the custom ammo side, then that's where like the reloading and the reloading education stuff can come into the business in the future.
Right. Yeah, and that's kind of what you started out doing too. That's what your background is, and like I said, no point in reinventing the wheel. Like you're kind of doing this where you came from, and from my perspective at least, that would be, the most fun or, rewarding, I guess might be the word for it now.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not fun every day, but
No, I won't act like it's fun every day. Like the thing that has made me lazy is that Mark 7. when
oh,
I'm
I
when I'm
bet.
running that press, like basically I need to be there to oversee things and add components and make sure everything's running good, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But when I have to single stage load things now, I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, now I'm really lazy. And I'm like, I forget what it was like. Like,
Yeah.
I'll have to line up all my brass in the trays and all that kind of stuff and get everything like ready to go. That way I can actually go through and do everything in order and correctly. And it's a little annoying sometimes,
Yeah.
I won't lie. But it's just want to put some things out there where I see holes in cartridges or calibers or anything like that.
Yeah.
And
No, for sure.
that's where six arc and all that stuff came from. I just saw some holes that I thought could be filled.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that um I just hope that enough people can hear and see the numbers and the data, and I hope that people get out and shoot it because for all the 223 guys, um I think that it's a game changer. And I'll be honest, I when I shot them and I saw how good they shot, I saw the numbers, I was blown away. And then I'm like, okay, the catches they gotta be expensive, right? So then I go on, I look, and I'm like, well, they're not expensive. Like I would say like right in the ballpark of normal factory ammo. Like if I was to buy a Hornady 55 grain 20 round box, two boxes of those equaling 40 is cheaper than 50 from you.
Yeah, I mean,
Or your
like,
50 is cheaper than the 40 from Hornady. Sorry.
oh no, you're good. Like the cases and all of that stuff, because of how they're manufactured and what it is, it's right there on par with or cheaper than certain brass offerings. So like, when I think top tier brass, I think Alpha Munitions typically.
Yep.
Alpha, Lapua, those kind of
Yep.
companies. And most people probably think the same thing. And their brass is very good brass. It's exceptional brass, but you pay for it. And when you pay for it big time.
It's expensive.
Yes, it's expensive, and
Yeah.
I know all too well because the 6 ARC stuff that I load is in Alpha Brass, and the this NAS3 stuff is cheaper. It's cheaper,
Yeah.
but it's better.
Yeah.
And so you may not. Now, granted, we'll clarify a few things. Now, I have been told that you can reload these, but I have not tried it yet, purely because I don't want to stick one of these things in my dies currently, my expensive nice dies. Um, but in the future, I'm going to try it out and see if it actually can be done. But so I've had people tell me that are reputable, that are that are people that would know. But I've also had the company Shell Shock say that they don't recommend it. And so
Yeah.
you are supposed to be able to reload these. I have no answer for everybody on that one. I just know
Yeah.
that if you are looking for most people that are going to buy factory ammo typically are looking for something that they can shoot and forget.
Yep.
So that's kind of what this offers. It offers you like a higher performance threshold that you can shoot and forget, um, and achieve your goals. So that's what these offer, and there's more coming. That's the other thing too. It won't work. Well, I'll have them in the future. Like 308 is coming. I'm sure people have heard about this. 308's coming. 6.5 Creedmoor's coming. 6 ARC is coming. And there's going to be others in the future. I can't really talk about those, but they're coming. A lot of really cool things are coming for these cases. So it's a good thing to look forward to because, man, I could talk about this stuff forever. But so you can stop me if I'm running my mouth too much. But the 308 stuff, you're going to be getting 300 Win Mag velocities out of a 308. Like
Yeah.
that's never been done before, and so that's a cool innovation. And then in 6.5 Creed, I mean, you're going to be surpassing 6.5 PRC velocities in the 6.5 Creed stuff. That's
Right.
just my guess, but
Yeah.
based off of everything else I've seen, you're going to surpass 6.5 PRC velocities, I believe.
Right.
And so that's a huge advancement. And they actually are making, for hunters, you're probably not going to use this unless you're like an elk hunter, but they are making 338 Lapua shell shock cases.
Yikes.
And yeah, yeah. When I was talking to the engineers at Shell Shock about those, and the salesman too, they were like, "Hey, you want some 338 Lapua?" And I was like, "Guys, I'm sorry, I don't have the range. I don't have like any of the use case for those cases." But they were telling me that you can hold a group at 2 miles with them, and I was like, "Whoa, that's crazy." So very cool things are coming with this stuff in the future.
Yeah. I'm excited for it.
Oh yeah, I am too. Because like I said, I'm at the end of the day, I'm an end user too,
Yeah.
and I like to see this stuff. I love to tinker and work
Yep.
on all the things like most of us do, but being able to put a quality product out there is my main goal when I tinker now.
Yeah.
But before it was just because I'm an end user, and so
Yeah.
I'll tinker on stuff for me personally, but most of most of what I've come out with, I don't really keep to myself anymore. I put it out there if it's worth it.
Yeah.
So just because like I've heard so many guys that have come on your podcast before say the same thing, like Tory Cook and James O'Neill and all these guys. I've looked up to those guys for years, watched their stuff for years. I mean, Tory Cook, he was super, and he was probably the biggest reason I got into coyote hunting, apart from the Randy Anderson stuff.
Yeah.
And he said the same thing that I'll say. Like, you know, well, I'm gonna act like a hypocrite when I say this because some of my load data I'm gonna keep secret and or not give out because I don't want people to hurt themselves.
Yes.
And I need to keep some of that, like, to myself because I've
Yes.
put the time and money into it to develop it. But
Yep.
for the most part, with like the loads I put out, like the loads I put out are the ones I don't have any secrets with those. Like I put out the things that are going to work,
Yep.
and the other things that aren't going to work that people might think I hold back. Like, trust me, they just don't work.
Yes.
Like they don't achieve the goals that you're going to want to achieve. They just don't. So yeah, it's been a wild ride for sure, but it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Definitely.
For sure. It's gonna be something that's gonna keep you busy because if they keep coming out with new stuff and new cases, and it's gonna just give you more and more projects as soon as you think you got one figured out, or someone's gonna come to you and say, "Hey, can you work me up this load?" And you're gonna figure out something that's better, and I'm sure it's just gonna be a never-ending rabbit hole.
Yeah, I've already felt that a little bit. I've had a lot of guys come to me and ask about all the things. Ask about 22 arc, 22 creed, 30-30,
Oh man.
like all the things you can, all the calibers you can think about. I've probably had somebody ask me about
I'd
them, like,
imagine.
when will you have this? And some of those people I just have to be honest with and just be like, hey, I don't really do um, those calibers currently, like I do modern calibers, or hey, like I'm spread out right now. I don't really have the capacity to do that, but it'll come in the future. All that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And like same thing with six arc and all of that. People have asked me about 80 ELD VT and six arc a lot.
Yep.
And currently 80 ELDVT is just Hornady's got a very good thing going with that particular projectile, and they've got a good thing going. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
And so, stuff like that is coming in the future, and it will be kind of a never-ending rabbit hole. But I'm okay with that, just
Yep.
because like whenever I get some things set to where I can just run them on the press and they can sell whenever somebody wants them, great. That
Yeah.
just frees me up to go do other things.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so then, that frees me up to go do the packaging, or that frees me up to go develop new stuff, kind of like I did today. And
Yeah.
so any of those things, like if I can automate some things and it still be extremely precise, that helps a lot.
Yeah.
That
That
helps a
makes
lot.
sense. Yep. Um, well, while we kind of wrap things up here, you'll have to tell everybody where they can find your ammo. Obviously, I'm gonna have all your information in the show notes, your Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff. But tell everybody your website, where to find you. Kind of give us the rundown where people can go and buy some ammo after hearing this.
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is makereadyreloading.com, all one word, no spaces, no capitals or anything crazy like that. You type that into Google, that'll take you right to the website. And my Instagram is a little more complicated. It's make underscore ready underscore reloading 76. Somebody had already taken the name. I don't know who, or it was too similar to somebody else. So I had to do all kinds of weird stuff to get it to work. But that's the Instagram. That's where I post a lot of content. I have a YouTube channel as well, but I haven't posted on that in a while. I am not the best at editing videos. And typically I'm so tied up with ammunition and stuff like that. I'm only, I schedule some posts here and there on Instagram and Facebook and just leave YouTube alone for a little bit and then post a video every once in a while. But I do
Yep.
have a YouTube channel that's Make Ready Reloading. You can type that in and find it there. And then on Facebook, same thing. It's just a simple Facebook page. You can type that in and find me there.
Sounds good, and I'll put everything in the show notes. I got another video that I'm gonna put out with the 69 grain Sierra Blitz King. I'll obviously have a post up on Instagram if you guys are looking to find Mason's Instagram and his website and stuff. Check the show notes, and it'll all be there for you. I would encourage you guys to check it out, especially if you're a 223 shooter, especially if you like to shoot coyotes with a 223 and you don't reload. I know some people that reload can be very particular to their own stuff, that they really like their own stuff, and that is fine. But if you're currently buying factory ammo and you don't look at this ammo, you are leaving some animals in the field. So I would encourage you guys to check it out. I was skeptical. I'm telling you guys that I'm skeptical as anyone. I was skeptical when Mason told me about this and sent me this ammo. I am a true believer from shooting it, and that is all. So I would encourage you guys to check it out and look at his website. You know, just get a box, test it, shoot it yourself, and find it out. You'll see. If you have a question for me that I can help with, or if you want my honest advice of what you should go with, I can tell you what velocities I shot stuff at. I shot, like I mentioned, I shot the 53, the 60, and the 69 Sierra Blitz King now. So check them out and let Mason hook you up with some awesome ammo.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Like I said, it's been an honor to be here, especially since so many guys that I look up to have been here.
yeah, I appreciate you coming on, and it was fun finally getting to kind of talk to you face to face without being in person.
Yeah.
But we'll keep in touch, and I'm wishing you the best, and hopefully some guys are gonna get some ammo and have some success in the field and send us some pictures.
Yes, that'd be great. If any of you do buy ammo from this podcast and you want to tag me. I love to see it. If you have, groups, data, anything like that, that would be awesome to see as well. Just because I love that stuff. Like that's what I do.
Absolutely. All right, Mason. Well, thanks for coming on, and keep making some awesome ammo.
Absolutely, man. Thank you.